All right, if you're just joining us, it's still Crossfire with Dakbo and Ishoma. And we have a gentleman in the studio joining us for our conversation this morning. And you know, as usual, we just talk about this nation. We're passionate about it, and all we try to do is to just look at issues and then try and enumerate them or probably provide updates. Today is a Thursday, and so what we do is that we deal with trending. So today is Trending Thursday. So all stories that are trending, we will just try and see how much of them we can actually speak on and just throw more light on them. We have a gentleman in the studio who just joined us. He's a political analyst and a social commentator. He's no other person but Adeni Konu. Nice to meet you, Mr. Kunu, and nice to have you on the panel.
Thank you very much for having me. I feel pleasure being here this morning.
Anyway,
thank you too.
I hope the traffic wasn't so bad because coming all the way from the mainland sometimes can be very...
I escaped at the right time.
Good, good. All right, on the show this morning, we will do business as usual by just trying to reel out those stories one after the other, and then we take comment. But our major conversation this morning borders around the belief of the ruling party that concentration in terms of development should be narrowed down to a particular region. Okay, we understand that Boko Haram or the south or the northeastern part of Nigeria is actually war-ravaged. I said terrorist activities have been on in that region for more than 5 years, and to a very large extent, a lot of properties have been destroyed, farmlands have been taken over, and up until now, people have not been able to return to their places of abode, as we still have the internally displaced camps still very functional. Now, the president approached the World Bank and said, let concentration for development in Nigeria be on the northeastern part of Nigeria, with a lot of agitation taking place in the in the southeast of Nigeria, and probably the southwest and the south will begin some form of agitation with this in mind. A lot of people are feeling that the president probably made this statement out of a bias. Why some people are thinking, can't you see? Because the National Working Committee of the ruling party met yesterday in Abuja, and their agitation or their point is that we believe in what the president said, because the northeastern part of Nigeria really need to be redeveloped or reconstructed, if I may borrow that word. So we'll be narrowing down to that conversation, but before we go in there, we definitely will take comments on story making headlines. And the one that is really very interesting for me this morning is the president's arrival in Turkey ahead of the Friday's, summit of the Developing Eight on Friday, which is tomorrow. So the summit, which will mark the 20th anniversary of the organization, and President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to highlight some significant show of confidence in Nigerian business environment and economy. Mr. Kunu, yes, permit me to address you as that on the show. Yes, now, the point here, do you think this is instructive at this point in our history, or at this point in our nation? Considering the state of the nation, considering a lot of things happening, do you think that we have a business environment that will or should attract investors? Do you think this really is important for Nigeria as of now?
Well, I think the first thing we must understand is in any society, if you must excel, there has to be peace, which is very critical. If we consider the tripod upon which this administration came on board, security is one of it. Yeah. I'd have to be very fair to say that the recovery of the local governments, many of which are in the northeastern part of the country by this administration, should first of all be applauded, because it actually came as one of the things it will do. That being said, I also believe that if you're talking about insurgency, it is something you must fight, not just at the national level, because it is an international problem at the moment. If we look at Turkey, Turkey actually, is astride a number of countries. Turkey is astride Europe as well as Asia. There's a border between Turkey and Syria. And of course, you know that Turkey is at the southernmost part of Europe. And that accounts for why, they continue to call it, more or less like Eurasia, which is very appropriate. That being said, I think it is not out of place for the presidents to go as far as, collaborate with Turkey. And do not forget that Maybe perhaps because of the similarity in the religious ideal of the president, it is easy to talk with people because if we have to be frank here, to be positive as well, that when you talk about, Islam actually is a religion that enables community.
You took that away from me because
I've got to take it.
Okay.
It takes, it's a religion that allows for community, communal lifestyle. And oftentimes you find out that alliances are better brokered by virtue of similarity in religion. But beyond that is the fact that Turkey has played its role, although there are controversies regarding the fight against terrorism. It appears as if it is double speak. On the one hand, it is fighting. On the other hand, it is also saying yes or no. So if you look at the, more or less like the vote held in Idlib, some I think that's last week or thereabouts, agitations here and there, but the point remains that Turkey's relationship with Nigeria in creating an atmosphere is very positive. Then also let us say this, in analyzing, businesses, there are many things people often go as far as China to get or go to the US to get. Turkey has been able to demonstrate that it is a country that can provide similar services. Even the airline has been doing fantastically well. So those things are not really out of place for the president to do it.
Okay.
But if you want to go ahead and talk about further alliances, international alliances is very healthy for you to have your economy become bolstered, for you to have peace in the country. But you'd also have to give consideration to your internal problems, which I think the president must essentially do. If you're talking about the relationship with Turkey to allow for peace and businesses, you cannot take away the fact that the southwestern part of the country, the southeastern part of the country, and of course the south-south part of the country, these regions account for much more money coming into the coffers of government than the entire north. So that simply means you have to also ask the question, this peace you're trying to broker, is it to enable people have their lives return to normal, or you're talking about a situation where people begin to invest in the country? Okay. I know that there are 1,001 businesses, going on in the north that many of us are not aware of. I have lived in the north. I have worked in the north. There are viable businesses in the north. But one thing that is also critical to having peace is the education of the people.
Okay. Now let me quickly, ask you this question.
Go ahead, please.
Now, there's a communique that the president is expected to present at this anniversary of the organization. And it borders around, the business environment and the economy. Nigeria is just barely surviving all the crises that we've gone into since 2015, since President Muhammad Buhari came into power. Technically, we are fighting terrorism in the northeast. Technically, Nigeria is out of recession. Almost everything is technical. Technical, which seems to be winning the war against, IPOB. Almost everything is technical. But looking at it from the context of what we have on ground, do you think, as an investor, you will want to come into a crisis-ridden, a country that cannot boast? Let me rephrase it. Cannot boast of security, or fully recovered from a recessed economy, and you want to go and speak. People are looking at us from outside the, from outside the country, and they know what is on ground. Won't the president really be misrepresenting what we have at the moment in terms of security, in terms of business environment, and in terms of economy?
Well, I want to say for the records that as the most populous black nation, and since business is about figures, you still have people who want to dare and come into the country to do businesses, which is very important. Technically, we are 0.5%. This administration took us into recession, double digits for the records, and it has technically taken us out. But I have to say here that there is no country of the world that doesn't have its own problems. The United States of America is fighting terrorism as much as the United Kingdom. Spain is fighting terrorism as much as Kazakhstan. Russia is fighting terrorism as much as Georgia. But the point is, you don't want to measure the scale because it differs. There is always one problem or the other that every country of the world is facing at some point in their history. So the point remains that it will not be very ideal for the president to have, or want to have, a 100% situation before it enables or reaches out to other people to come. But if you look at it, it is not even the entire part of the country where there are agitations. Lagos, where we are domiciled, is a healthy place for business. Of course, it has the lowest landmass, but of course, it's second in population according to the last census we took. So I think it is in place that the president goes out, because if you look at it, if there are problems in your country, you have to go out and correct negative impressions. For instance, if the United States of America comes out to the world, it speaks as though there are no problems. But I have to tell you that there are very many poor people in the U.S., homeless people that are not catered to. There are many people who are out of jobs, whose social security system is very problematic in the same U.S. If you go to the U.K., we have people who have several kinds of problems because immediately you're not able to measure up with your mortgage, common receivership takes place. Your car insurance, receivership takes place. So these are realities that they've experienced. But what is it that the government of these countries do? They continue to step forward, creating positives to douse the negative, and at the background to try to work hard to ensure that the negatives are taken care of. So for the president, in all of the negatives about him and about this administration, I think we cannot suffer another negative blow. But one thing that must remain instructive for the president is that in addressing all of these issues at the international level, you must be sincere enough to know that your home has its own health situation. And for the fabric of the country called Nigeria to be healthy, you have to be sincere in your approach. If I could allude, I want to talk about Plateau State on this program. Security is one of the mandates that this president has told the world it wants to fight. But when it appears as though the security network of this country is questionable, 3 consecutive days in Basa local government of Plateau State. First day were reported on Monday, 20, on Tuesday, 29. Yesterday, 1 dead, 30 houses razed. And the security operatives, now we've accused the police of not being able to fight when they need to fight. But the army officers that were deployed could not make an arrest even after 3 days of one person amongst the marauders. And it becomes very simplistic when you have Mr. Fees, the Commissioner of Police in the area, come to say that it is that the Fulani herders did not adhere to the curfew. No, when a curfew is called, the security operatives take responsibility to arrest those who do not obey the curfew. So it tells you that there are things we must begin to ask ourselves beyond the periphery about the sincerity of this government to really tackle what it talks about. Because I say here that the continuous decimation of people, you move away from Plateau, that is as many years as we can talk about. You want to talk about places in Nasarawa. You want to talk about the Agatu problem in Benue State. You want to talk about what has happened in Enugu State. And since then till now, there has not been any arrest of people wielding AK-47 and fighting and killing.
But beyond the activities and the capacities and the inefficiencies of the federal government in addressing these security issues, where does the state government come in here? Because we know also that the governor of any state is the chief security officer of that state. And not also to mention the humongous money is being allotted monthly for security votes, which oftentimes never get accounted for because they're not factored in the budget. So where does the state's governor come in here in addressing these issues?
Fantastic questions, and may God bless the day you were born. I think strongly that many governors should be out of office now by way of impeachment because they have failed the citizenry of their respective states. Akwa Ibom collects 2 billion in security votes, and many other states, the money you collect is dependent.
Is that monthly?
That should be monthly, yeah, 2 billion unaccounted for. Many other states, of course, we know that there are certain regions that collect a little bit more than others because of the security situation. I think one man in the country that appears to have a sense of direction and protection for our people has to be the governor of Ekiti State. Because if you look at it, the man is in the opposition. I have to say here for the world to hear, I am not a PDP or APC member, but I am a Nigerian who has concern and passion for things to be done well. And that is the reason that I have the privilege of using this platform to tell the world. Immediately, these Fulani herders were killing in Ekiti State. Ayodele Fayose set up immediately a vigilante specifically to tackle that issue. And do you know that for the record, since this man took that step, we've not had Fulani. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks after he set it up, they arrested people. And you know what? The herders did not try that again because there was a decisive action by the governor of that state. Permit me go to Enugu when somebody was killed, when people were killed. Pregnant woman's stomach was slit open. The governor of Enugu State came there and started crying. That is one of the most irresponsible postures of the first citizen of a state. And I have to say here that perhaps these governors must be told the truth about harnessing the privileges they have as far as the Constitution is concerned before they continue to cry out to the respective government responsible at the center. The point remains that you cannot continue to let the people suffer because you have refused for... Now, let me say this.
But they always blame the fault on lack of restructuring.
Excuse me, restructuring is one thing. Taking immediate action is another. God forbid an intruder comes to my door. I have a family. I am at the door. Before I shout to the vigilantes on my street, I have to disarm the person who wants to cause harm to me and my family before I go out and seek help. So the point is, the first thing you would expect these governors to do is, you have security votes. What is it for? Protect the people.
How do you intend that they go about that? Okay. Knowing fully well that they are not directly, they cannot, by constitution, the Nigerian police or the state police do not report to them. You have a commissioner of police who reports to Abuja.
Would you want
and then you have a commissioner of police in a state who reports to Abuja. You have an IG in a region who reports to Abuja. And so you expect that the first citizen, or because the governor is the first citizen of the state, to take the laws into his hands, and because he's empowered by security vote to probably deploy any form of security that he could.
Thank you. Let me also say this. We have private security operators in this country. Yeah. Once you are able to get license for a gun, you acquire. That is private security operators in this country. I don't want to mention their names. Immediately you acquire license to purchase arms, there are procedures you fulfill. They give you the permission to get the arms. That's private security operatives. Let alone the governors of states. They have the power to set up their own security apparatus, and that is constitutional. They can't do that.
Yes.
What they need to do is request licenses for ammunition for these security operatives in their state. Tell the givers of the licenses the reason that this will be acquired, because it is what they can do. Get retired military officers in your respective states, train people, get naval and army cadets within university environment. We have the man-o-war that they can also employ their services. Tell them their terms of reference.
Even local vigilantes.
Local vigilantes, get them trained. Why is it that we have civilian JTF helping the army snuff out Boko Haram? These things I have mentioned here are what they would have privileged upon and help the security of their state. If the police have decided not to do the bidding of the states because the Constitution says report to Abuja, if the army will say the Constitution says report to Abuja, but the vigilante can report to you, you can form a functional security network that is operational within your state. If these particular Fulani headers are crude in their approach with AK-47, then definitely you could do things much more than that by training those who are retired. The point is, it is not rocket science, my brother. It is thinking out of the box and being sincere. For instance, now, you have some of them still talking about the president coming back in 2019 and staying till 2023. Everybody has a right to say what they want. But the point remains that the things they would have gone are the things they are living. That's what Samuel Otom is saying. And I don't think that his people will be happy to hear that you cannot go to Abuja and be talking about the president coming back in 2019 when you have not addressed primary issues. So I think we really need to understand that these governors can do much more than they are doing now for their people and ensure that lives are protected. If you look at it, how would you tell me, please, I want to ask the world, that since these Fulani skirmishes have been going on,
headsmen, let's not
let me say this. Let's say
excuse me, Mr. President made reference to it yesterday, and he called it Fulani.
The president
addressed it.
Excuse me.
No, I said the president.
Hold on.
The president talked about it and addressed it as Fulani.
Let's use the word the cattle herders.
Okay, better.
So if you want us to use that, we'll use it. But of course, you're correct because the president
already addressed it.
But for the benefit of understanding, the cattle. Thank you. The cattle herders, at some point when they were running amok in Kaduna, what happened in Kaduna? We're told that these people are foreigners coming from different sides of the country. That was what they said. Okay, if they are foreigners, no problem. We treat foreigners, we want to treat Nigerians like criminals. What do? We get rid of foreigners because obviously they have breached the security and the external sovereignty of Nigeria. So what is surprising to me up until this moment is that since we've been having these killings, I have not seen 10 people arrested and paraded. And I think it is an indictment of our security network. The point is, at times people tell you, don't say this. No, not at all. If I died today, I would be happy because I've spoken the truth. If I died in the next 30, 40 years, I'd also be happy. One thing that wouldn't change is the fact that the world has heard that there's truth spoken. Okay. So let's stop this hypocrisy.
Now I don't think that this is hypocritical.
No, that's...
no, I don't think so.
I decided to go that way.
Yes, and I can tell you that to a very large extent, I think by constitution, we have a level of incapacitation that have been created, bottlenecks, and that would not make probably governors to be able to do what they want to do.
All right.
One of the tripartites, like you rightly said at the beginning of the show, is that this government promised that they will restore security and normalcy.
That's true.
To every troubled zone in Nigeria.
Very correct.
Now, truth be told, the effort of this government in power is totally, and their effort and their approach is totally different from the outgone, administration.
Of course.
And to a very large extent too, they have seen set records.
That's true.
That they are very determined to really fight it. We have the return of the Chibok girls, even though some of them are still there.
Yeah.
But this is my point. My point is, why won't this government then quickly raise the bill and push it to institute state policing? Right. Why the delay? Why are we taking so much time? If this, because every of your presentation and the things that you have recommended is that they should go ahead and empower, vigilantes and all of that. So what are we waiting for to institute state policing? I'm not going to take your thought right now.
Okay.
We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we have a gentleman who's going to be joining us, and probably, I'm very sure, he's not coming to align with the position of Mr. Adini Ikunu. and then we'll bring him on, and then we have a conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back now. All right, we're back, and thanks for staying with us. It's still Crossfire with Dakpo and Ishama. We have Mr. Adini Ikunu on set with us, and we've been having a conversation before we went on that break. And joining us on the set is another gentleman. He is an advocate of change and for change. And every time, we bring him on board, he tells you, just the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. He's not a lawyer, but he's an advocate. All right, so let's welcome Mr. Kayode Sarako to Crossfire this morning. Good to have you on set.
Good morning.
Thanks for the effort.
How are you?
Very fine, thank you.
All right,
you're looking fabulous.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, we were having a conversation before you joined us, and it gets really very hot on Crossfire every time we talk about you just realize that there is something somewhere that needs to be unraveled or discussed or or criticized, even sometimes. We're talking about the presence of the president, in Turkey. And he is there to adopt a communique. And this has to do with, the show of confidence in Nigeria's business environment and economy. Do you think we have the business environment, and do you think we have the economy that is worth investing in? Considering the myriad of challenges that we're having. Boko Haram in the northeast, agitation in the, Boko Haram in the northeast, agitation in the southeast, some form of talks still going on in other regions. The South are still disenfranchised as far as they are concerned. The Northeast is saying we are marginalized and we need, you know, a country of our own. So many things are happening, and the world knows that, you know, there's a lot to be attended to in Nigeria, and our president is in Turkey to, you know, to present a communique on Nigerian business environment and economy. Do you think this meeting is worth attending, knowing fully well we have internal crisis?
Well, thank you very much. Nigeria is a country of about 180 million people.
If not more.
If not more. So, doing business in Nigeria should be worthwhile under normal circumstances. In fact, foreign investors, businessmen and women around the world should be interested in investing in Nigeria, because there is nothing you bring here that you won't sell. Go to Oshodi. Fairly used clothes, you see people scrambling to buy them. A lot of things sell in Nigeria. So, the business environment is there. The only problem is that we, Nigerians, are the ones giving the business environment the problem. And until we decide, we no longer continue to give our business environment that problem and that image.
How is it the Nigerian people's problem?
Is
it the Nigerian people's problem that we don't have electricity?
Exactly.
Who are the business environment? Is it
cost of doing business?
Yeah. Is it the cost
of arrival issues which have not yet been addressed? So many other issues.
People will always deserve the kind of leadership and government they get.
Okay.
You see? Yes, over time, it has been this story of this reality of misrule, leadership misrule, vis-a-vis poorly orientated Nigerian citizenship.
Okay.
The people that we push forward to go and govern us, or maybe to go and rule us, in quotes, are the same people we worked for, we voted for them.
Can I ask a question?
So,
if we are so bad in Nigeria, is that the reason why we have the current leadership in the federal government? Because of how bad we are.
This current leadership is not bad. It is not bad. You see, President Muhammadu Buhari still remains that man of integrity. His vice is a man of God, a revered professor of law, and a man of God, a pastor, a preacher of the gospel. So, the two of them wouldn't have been bad. But let me tell you something, please. There is nothing two people can do immediately like that to create that kind of impact we are expecting in a country where the political system itself is bad. I'm sorry to say this. Bring Jesus Christ to come and be our president today. The political system will give him problem.
But the change mantra was meant to not just change Nigerians, but also to change the political system.
Yes.
So why the delay?
My sister, this is democracy.
Yeah, doesn't this eventually, come back to my position?
Yeah, what position?
That we do not have, the kind of business environment, and in addition to that, the kind of economy that is worth investing in.
Well, I just want to say something, because I listened to my friend Kaide talk about the integrity, and in the first place, my constitution tells me that there shall not be state religion. But in the typical text, confused nature of the constitution, it says again that some people can practice Sharia. That's a confusing text that we have for constitution, handed down to us by the military. But we'll deal with that sooner than later, no matter how they try to disagree. The president and the vice president may have integrity as individuals. But if we are to intertwine their integrity with the operation of the Nigerian entity, then it is questionable.
Definitely.
Questionable in the sense that the president has had on his table for over 2 months the reports of the Babacha Lawal and the Ayokes of this world.
Yes.
And nothing whatsoever has been said. Do not forget that that particular report had been rounded off
long before
he came back.
Yes.
He stayed 103 days. And up until this moment, not a word has been said. In that wise, I am going to condemn, or I'm going to say that the integrity of the president is questionable. If you also look at the vice president, in the instance of the $25 billion contract to the tune of 9 trillion naira, his spokesperson, Laolu Akonde, in a day within 3 hours, gave the world different information regarding the position. It took the clarification of the vice president to say that it was loan rather than a contract. I think strongly that immediately you become double speak, then your integrity is questionable. I am not saying that he stole or he took the money, but do not allow yourself to be used
caught up
as an instrument of double speak. And that accounts for why people have an alternative when they serve in government. If you find out that what they are doing is not good enough, you have the alternative to resign. Let me refer to Kenya in the person of Rosalina Kombo. She's one of the top commissioners for the forthcoming election on the 26th in Kenya. Of course, a PhD holder at 41. She works with the UN in New York. Impressive CV. She understands what democracy means and what the dynamics of 21st century governance is. So when she has been trying that the records be put right as far as the Electoral Commission in Kenya is concerned, and they're not allowing her, she took the alternative and resigned. And I think that the person of the vice president, rather than allow the reputation he has built over the years to be thrown in the mud, can also elderly do that.
But so, unfortunately, that is not part of our culture.
No, excuse me. I wouldn't want, excuse me.
It's not part of it.
It is not also our culture to lie. So the point remains that I wouldn't want us to say, my friend, there's something I'd like us to make the world understand.
Yes.
In our respective homes, especially if you have some ego, you find it difficult to apologize if you've offended, but it doesn't reduce you. The same thing has to do with this on the national scale. Before
I mean, let's assume that we have a case of misunderstanding or misrepresentation, and you really want to stay around to be able to clear that what you actually said is true. It may not have to be, to lead to a point of, resigning or leaving the platform because you have a point, to make.
I agree with you that is also possible, that you can do that. But I have to say that it's always difficult to have
because to take your position sounds really very conclusive. It sounds really very conclusive.
Ordinarily, let's say this, ordinarily, when certain things are, for instance, let's refer to the $25 billion issue within the NNPC. You see, in standard climes, in standard practice, when things of such nature happen,
somebody should have resigned.
The point is, even if they don't resign, you
should have been the one to resign first.
I'm saying
why? Why not Baru?
Kachuku should have been the one to resign.
Why would he resign?
Why?
Because he is the one that is complaining, that is being marginalized.
Not at all.
He's the one that is giving the
he should not have resigned. The president would have said, because if you look at it now, over the Ibe Kachuku Meikanti Baru story, we've heard about 6 versions.
If not more than that.
No, just let me help them say this. We've heard about 6 versions.
Official version.
And I think that we cannot continue to look ridiculous in the eyes of the world. It would have been okay for the president to say...
My brother...
Hold on, let him just land on that.
I wanted to say that it would have been okay for the president... No, I want to say...
Let him just land and then I'll take him.
It would have been okay for the president to say, Ibe Kachuku and Meikanti Baru, this is too sour on our tongue to take. Stand aside, let's investigate. But rather, they've patched it, they've molded it, they've cemented it, and now they're still there. We don't know what the truth is in all of the 25.
All right. Well, the presidency has not come out to say, oh, these people, we know they are wrong. We know they didn't do well, and we are going to be retaining them. The presidency has not given an official position.
Why did
on that issue? Yeah, because the presidency has not even taken a position. The presidency has not even taken a position on the matter.
The president of Nigeria is not such a one which should be run the way he feels it,
Okay.
Or the way I feel it,
Now,
or the way you feel
don't you
it.
think that delay also sent a negative signal to even foreign investors
you are the
that
one,
Nigeria is a lawless country?
You are the one that is saying like that.
Nigeria is a country where things can happen and everybody goes
This
to sleep.
is democracy.
Let him make it.
You see,
Land on your
this
point.
is democracy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In democratic governance, you take your time to look into issues.
Like forever.
Critically, properly.
Like forever.
When did it start?
David Cameron called this country
a meeting. Yes, a meeting.
Are we not corrupt?
He said,
are we not corrupt?
Oh, the point remains that you're trying
Are
to
we
make a
not
case
corrupt?
that it is not about how I want it.
Of course we are corrupt.
It's about the dictates of the system of governance that
No,
we're practicing.
my brother,
You cannot stay forever on an issue.
are not
The
done
point
in
is,
a
he said
fire brigade
we
way.
are
But
a
democracy.
fantastically corrupt country.
No.
They are
It's 2
giving him
months.
reports.
So in a nutshell,
What
it's 2
is
months
he waiting for?
Yes,
Say
listen.
something about the report. You should have told Nigeria, I've received it, please give me 3 months, I'll come back to you.
Exactly.
He didn't say anything.
Some of
Exactly.
the cases we have, listen now, some of the cases we have in court, cases of corruption.
Yes.
Some of them are up to about 10 years old
Do you
now.
Whose fault?
understand? Do you
Some are
understand that?
Whose fault?
Do you
Whose
also
fault?
Now-
understand that justice delayed is largely justice denied?
But this is not yet justice denied.
But this is
In my own
justice.
opinion,
This is justice for the Nigerian
Listen.
people. This is a collective purse
the
for
presidency
Nigerians.
will still come
And
out.
sleeping on it
I am not speaking
Will
on
gives
still
room
come
for
out.
opposition.
Listen.
Sleeping on it gives room for cover-up here.
Let him
if
make
there
his
is an
point.
element of corruption.
The presidency has already set up a commission of inquiry, a panel, a committee to investigate. So why don't we wait for the outcome of that investigation?
Okay,
Why do we want the presidency to be run
Mr. K.
the way we feel
No,
it?
Mr. K.
about
No,
the
Mr.
way
Denny.
we-
Mr. Denny,
if
can
you
you hold
were
on?
the vice
Can you
president,
hold on?
would
Can
you
you
have
hold on?
resigned?
All right, Mr. K. Mr. K, I have a
If you were
question
the vice
for you.
president, would he have resigned?
No,
I have
wait,
already said
wait.
that is an alternative to take.
Would he have resigned?
In instances where you find that they don't want you to do things right,
My brother.
you have the alternative
Hold
to
on,
resign.
hold on. I
and
have
walk
a
away.
question.
You are already indicting
No,
the
I have
vice
a
president.
question
No,
for both
I have
of you.
You are
only
indicting
said,
the presidency.
not at all.
Would you have resigned by now?
You don't have to ask. I'm
If
not
you
in
were the one
government.
vice
I'm not in
president.
government. Maybe if I get there, I'll answer. But for now, I am a citizen of this country.
The dynamics of running democratic governance
Excuse me.
is not as
Why
easy
why
as
would you say it is
Can we
not in our
cease
nature
fire? Can
to-
we cease fire for just
Who has resigned
a
in
few
Nigeria?
seconds?
Give me the-
Mr. K.
give me the
Somebody can start.
Who has resigned?
Somebody can
Somebody-
start. It's not the crime to
Somebody-
start.
Who
Yes.
has resigned?
Can we cease
Not
fire here?
Can we cease fire? Just 1 second. 2 months.
Yes.
I mean, way beyond the time the president eventually arrived after
Yes.
his medical leave.
Yes.
An investigation was carried out. A report was prepared.
Yes.
The president cancelled a federal executive meeting because a presentation of that report was going to be made. And that report was made.
Is this official? What
Oh,
I say,
yes.
is it official?
Very official.
Yes, of course.
It's
Very
in
official.
the public domain.
Okay, if it is
It's in
official,
the public
what reason-
domain.
What reason did the presidency give?
As a matter of fact, they
You know, for the
celebrated,
report?
they celebrated
No, for
the
the
handing over of
the-
a report.
Yes.
A report that
They
guided people.
cancelled an
And
executive
federal-
meeting.
It was on a
Executive
Wednesday.
meeting.
They handed it
As-
over.
as
The photographers
far
were
as
everywhere.
I
There
am
was
concerned.
paparazzi.
Yes.
As
Baba
far
K.
as I am concerned,
Yes.
this government is still better comparatively.
Please
to
do
where
not,
we're coming
do
from.
not, oh, okay. Do
To
you
where
want me to
we're coming
punch on
from.
that?
Oh,
Do you want me
really?
to punch on that?
We
Yes,
gave
please.
we little time.
Let
Okay.
him allow
We
me
gave-
say
we
this.
gave-
I'm
okay.
talking
You
figures
have been
here.
talking back here.
No, it's not about that. You should have
No,
been
it's
here
okay.
earlier. You should
It's
have been here
okay.
earlier.
Gentlemen.
I woke up earlier, so would have had a platform.
Okay.
This is what I want to
place.
Oh, excuse me, forget about it.
Sekade, can he?
Let me just tell you this. I said for the records,
Okay.
this country was put in double-digit recession by this administration. Please do not compare.
What type of
Hold on. Let him
hold
land. I will
on
give you
now.
time to talk.
Just-
Mr. K, I'll
what
give you
type
time
of
to talk.
Mr.
Nigeria
K,
did
hold
this
on.
government inherited?
Hold
Okay.
on, my
Okay.
brother. What I want to tell you is this: every administration has its peculiar problem. So when we want to,
The la- what-
let's
what
not
was the
hold
peculiar problem of the last one?
on. Hold on. This
What is the
administration.
peculiar problem of the last one?
Please hold on now. Hold on. Because
Okay,
I
go
like
ahead.
to-
Make your point.
What I want to say is this:
Yes.
this administration took us because the economy of this country was rebased during the previous administration, and we became the #1 economy in Africa. when this
On paper. On paper.
No.
On paper,
Excuse me.
On paper.
It's not about paper.
It went by GDP.
Yes. Excuse me. So
Something
this just on
they already
paper.
prepared
It is
before the
not
election.
orient. It is about. It's not a unilateral.
Don't you think it was politically motivated?
Yes.
Whatever
it was a push towards 2016 election.
South Africa would have denied it.
Okay.
If it was, don't forget, South Africa went to second from first, and the South African government did not argue about the rebasing. Please, I don't like comparing. Please, don't let it seem as if I'm a spokesman for the last administration. I'm saying don't compare. Address your problem. You also sound like the supporter for this administration.
Yes.
So but what I want to say is this. If you are to take over a particular government, you would have read your handover notes to understand the nature of the problems you are coming to solve.
There was none for a very long time.
Hold on.
There was no handover document.
Excuse me.
6 months down the line into this new government, there was no handover document.
I've spoken generally.
Okay.
That you would have expected that even if you don't have handover notes, it is beautiful you have an idea of the complexity you are inheriting. So this is it.
Nigeria was
I'll give you time.
So far,
yes,
this government has actually borrowed well over 7 trillion. This government.
Correct. So
at the moment, our debt is over $65 billion as we speak.
Okay.
And now this government again, especially on the tripod that it said it's going to fight corruption. Let me tell you what happened October 5 of The Guardian. There was a revelation about the government asking oil explorers to pay $100 million into a special account to support the Northeast Initiative. Don't forget there's a World Bank. Don't forget there's another President Muhammadu Buhari initiative for the Northeast. Do you know what they said? They said that October 5 of Guardian, please get it, you find this story there, properly researched, no evidence.
I don't read
Guardian.
I don't read
Okay, no, it's not unnecessary. Do you know that it was not even denied?
I need to give him time.
Allow me, please. Hold on. No, they were told to contribute $100 million each, the chevrons of this world, the Shell of this world, the Mobil of this world, to contribute it, and that the money against what the Constitution provides will be put in a special account to set up, relief structures for the Northeast. Now, let's say this. It is not a crime to set up relief structures, but you cannot compel people to go out of their corporate social responsibility to do that. Don't forget to pay taxes.
What is the point on that?
The point I'm making is you cannot be fighting corruption and be doing certain things. That is what I'm saying.
Yes, I advise you to contest in 2019 to be the president of Nigeria so that you can run it as perfectly as you have been saying it now.
There's no perfect system. There's no perfect system.
There's no perfect system.
So there's no perfect system.
You want this government to be perfect.
System that appears fair.
You are painting a perfect system here.
Just.
Mr. Denny, can you hold on, let him make his point?
You are painting a perfect system here.
All right.
It's not perfect.
No.
But it can be fairer.
The fact of the matter is
just. It can be equitable.
Can you
not
accuse,
one fool and no one cattle header has been arrested. No. I don't want Nigerians to be confused here. I want us to set it fair.
Let him make a point.
Make your point.
This is my point.
Okay. What is it?
What do you first of all look for in the government?
Well, you asked me.
No. That government must be responsible.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned,
so as far as you're concerned,
this government is responsible.
I've not argued that. I've not argued that.
Can you accuse Buhari of stealing Nigeria's money?
I cannot. I have not accused.
Can you accuse the vice president of stealing Nigeria's money?
It's not only Buhari now.
Okay, hold on.
Listen now.
Listen, hold on. Go ahead with your point, Mr. K.
Leadership matters. It is leadership which dictates.
Okay.
Once the leader is not a thief, you can be sure that no thief can proudly come out under that leadership to say, I'm a thief.
It's like telling me now that a husband is an easygoing, but the wife fights the neighbors and the children cause katakata.
No.
Then they to accept him. No, the leader, the owner, the head of the house, take responsibility. I beg you.
Show me that thief.
Not just say it as it is.
Show me the thief that has been officially indicted in this government.
Excuse me.
Okay, I'm going to
officially indicted. Show me the thief.
I need you to cease fire completely.
I need to
take his last word. Because we don't have time on the show.
All right.
So let me take your last word. Now, you are saying that this government is responsible. You are saying that this government is accountable.
Yeah.
You are saying
visionary.
And this is a good government.
Yeah.
And our topic today is to address the fact that Nigeria is a good environment for business and that the economy is good enough.
The economy is emerging, yeah.
Okay.
You see, the economy is undergoing repairs.
Okay.
From the damage of the past misrule.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I mean, I wish
The
that I had
economy
time.
is undergoing repairs.
Okay.
It is emerging.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr.
Things are being properly put in place.
All right. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts on the show.
Thank you.
And really and truly, Nigeria is just what's really talking about. We'll go now, but we'll be back tomorrow for.
To enjoy more of these our Ogbonge videos when you just watch, press this button to subscribe on top of our YouTube page. You go love am.